do my makeup with me while I tell you about the story of how I was pushed out of my dream job. I have sat on this issue long enough. It's been like a year and I'm ready to spill some tea. All the people that I've told this story to, they're like, what? So it's time for you guys to hear this story. Just want to point out there are no nasty feelings, no nasty feelings. It's just a bit of a shocker that people allow businesses and places to run like this. So I thought I would tell y'all the story. So names and place names and bits and bobs like that are going to be changed because obviously I signed contracts and whatnot about confidentiality, and I know how important that is whether I still work at a company or not. And just because there's no nasty, I'm not gonna name drop because there's just no nasty feelings anymore. It's just, it is what it is, you move on. But I am gonna spill some tea because I don't know, it's therapy, getting off your chest. The vibes of today's video are cozy, hence why I've got my Oodie and a big old bucket. I've got big old ice squash. I'm not sure what the vibe of the makeup is going to be. I think we're just going to put it on our face and just make it up as we go along. But I am going to be doing a story time. So get a snack, get a drink and sit and be chill with me. I've already gone in with my trusty little primer. I never really use primer, but I just felt like doing it today, so we did. And I've done my eyebrows. You know the drill. Big up eyebrows. So now I'm just going to go in with the colour correcting cream while I start telling you the story. Let's start from the very beginning. I did my work experience in a nursery. I trained for this for like 3 years and I studied it at college, and I needed something for, I think it was like a week maybe work experience was, and I needed a placement basically. So I went to a nursery. It is a nursery that I already really loved and felt a bond with, and just, yeah, it ticked all the boxes. So I went, and it was ran by these two lovely women. I still think a lot of them to this day. But yeah, it was a lovely placement, lovely nursery. Everything that they stood for and the way that they taught things was literally perfect in my eyes. I'm quite fussy with the way that I feel like children and whatnot should be taught and approached. I've got like a very specific way in my head that I think is right. Personally, I feel like it is right the way that my brain thinks that children should be taught and whatnot, but that's just my brain. So yeah, and I literally agreed with everything that they stood for. It was so lovely. If I could have stayed longer than a week, I would have. We literally had a conversation on my last day and they were like, if ever you needed a place to work or come back to, we're always here. And I was like, that's good, because I want to come back. I want to live in the nursery. Like, it was just so lovely. I had children trying to come home with me every single day, especially the last day. I remember this story actually so well. There was this little girl and I'd literally met her. I think she only used to come in on like Friday afternoons or like Friday mornings maybe. And I'd literally met her about 2 hours before I left the placement forever. And my nan came to pick me up actually a bit earlier than some of the kids went home. And I was sat outside with this girl and we were sat at the table and I was like, oh, I've got to go home now, pop it. And she was like, okay, look round, and she was following me back to the classroom. I was like, where are you going? She was like, I'm coming home with you. So that's how well I love that placement and how much the placement loved me. I'm not tooting my own by saying the placement loved me, but it fit. It fit too good. It was like a missing piece of a puzzle. It just, everything clicked into place. It was so lovely. But I'd known those women for almost my whole life, ever since I was about 4, like the women who ran the nursery, and it was their nursery. So good memes, good times. I love how I've just been sat here and I've not put anything on my face. I've just been ranting away. I told you I was going to struggle with this multitasking, but it's fine, we move. So yeah, lovely, lovely placement. Everything that they stood for, everything that they did and their way of doing things was literally like ideal in my eyes. Fast forward, this was 2017, fast forward to the beginning of 2023, so about a year ago I think. And I saw that they were offering a position, and so I applied for it and I rang them up and I said, have you got my application? And they said yes. I got to make sure that my application made it to them okay, because this was a job that I really wanted and I was really excited about. And it turns out that between me doing my work experience and, oh no, how have I managed to get it on the lid? Me doing my work experience and me applying for the job, they'd actually had new management take over. The women had decided to sell the nursery to a new person. So they've got different management, which I was excited about, even though I loved the old women. They weren't old, but the old women. I do love their ways, but change is not always a bad thing. And I'm trying to teach myself that. Change is not always a bad thing. And I was excited about this change because I was like, this could be good, like new people, bring in a new approach to this nursery, and it could be really good. So I tried not to get too down in the dumps about it having different management because it could be a good thing. So yeah. And it turns out my parents knew one of the people as well. My parents actually know everyone, but my parents knew one of the people and they knew my parents, and I was like, they recognised my last name, and I was like, yep, I'm related to them. And she was like, I'm going to put in a good word for you. I was like, okay. Had a phone call within a few days saying, oh, we'd like to have you for an interview. And I was like, this is great. Fit me in whenever. I will clear my schedule because this is something that I really like. Met the team, met the people who would be sort of teaching me the ropes and everything. Everyone seemed lovely. There was a couple of people that I knew from school, like I recognised sort of being a little bit older. I was the youngest one there, I think. But it was sort of people who were a couple of years older than me in school that had sort of studied childcare as well. So it was sort of like familiar people-ish, kind of. Like I knew them, but they didn't know me because I was a bit of a wallflower. So sort of kept quiet and kept to myself. But yeah, they were people sort of recognised already, which was quite nice. Because it wasn't like new place, new people, new management, all scary all at once, because it was sort of familiar aspects. Like I already knew the nursery, I already knew some of the people, so it was nice. Anyway, went for the interview, it was really lovely. By the time I got home, I think this is like a 20-minute drive, I was offered the job and I accepted. It ticked all the boxes. I would have been silly not to have gone for it. This concealer's actually blending out quite nice. I was very used to the way that the people before had run it and their way of doing it because I'd known that nursery and those people like my life. So learning the new ropes and the way that they were doing things was a bit tricky. Also, I hadn't done childcare since like 2017, 2018. So it was tricky sort of getting back into the swing of things. As soon as I was reminded, I was like, I remember now. And I remembered it from then on. But it was just sort of like learning a new way of doing things, a different approach to things, which I knew that I would sort of struggle with anyway, like any normal person would. Finding a new approach to something when your brain is programmed to do it one way and you're trying to reprogram it to do it another way, that's tricky. We stuck with it, we persevered, we were like, yeah, it's a learning curve. We got this. It was going really good. It was going really good. And then a couple of issues sort of happened. It was, I don't know how to say it without sounding that I'm like being bitchy about it. I'm not. But I've been to other nurseries since and I've told them bits and pieces about this story. And I've been told the same thing by almost everyone, that nursery practitioners can be a bit bitchy. That's all I'm going to say, which is it's not understandable, but I've seen it. So it is understandable, but for me, it's not understandable why. There were very clear favourites from managers' points of view and assistant managers and even sort of nursery practitioners, same level as me. There was obvious favourites and there were people that were friends outside of work that let their personal and professional relationships sort of overlapped, which we will then find out in a minute when I get to that part of the story. So yeah, I like to think that I keep my personal and professional separate because my social life is like zero, so I just have a professional life. But yeah, I like to keep things like that separate. So yeah, all was going well. The children were getting on really well with me. I had my own key children, which is insane. Like, I was so proud of that. It's one of my biggest accomplishments to this date that I had key children. Basically, it just means that I'm responsible as well as the other practitioners, but I'm the main responsible person for their learning and their achievements and milestones and all of that kind of stuff. Like, I'm the one that records it and encourages it and basically teaches them one-on-one, which a massive achievement for me. Like, I'm still really proud of it to this day, and as I should be, so I should be. So as much as responsibility was being put on my shoulder, it was also not. I felt like I was never allowed to be thrown in at the deep end and just sort of see how I am, and if I struggle then someone would come and help me. I was never allowed to the only way I can sort of describe it is birds will stand on twigs that are breaking, like on a tree, because they trust their own wings. They're not putting their trust in the tree, they're putting their trust in their own wings. And I was never allowed to put my own trust in my own wings. And it was I felt like I was being held for a lot of it, which is what we're supposed to be doing to the children. I felt very like I was being babysat. It was very patronizing, and it wasn't just coming from my immediate superior, it was from the other practitioners as well. Well, not all of them, because there was some that were really, really lovely and really, really helpful, and just normal is all I can explain it. Like my kind of normal, just being nice and asking if I needed help and stuff like that, just sort of letting me get on with it. And if I needed any help, letting me know that I can come to them. Lovely. There was like a couple of people like that, but the majority of them, not even the majority, but just like a couple of them were a bit patronizing. And it was a bit like, obviously you're going to get that with any job, and that's what you expect, and that is fine because it's normal. It's just not nice. So yeah, and these practitioners that were being like that, shocker, used to hang out outside of work, like with each other. And it was people that were by job title on the same level as me. Obviously I'm not going to be up there with the experience, but it was people who had the same job level as me, the same pay as me, and they were trying to like micromanage me. I don't know, but yeah, I was not a fan. Just gonna sit here dabbing this concealer in. Yeah, there were a couple of incidences where I was sort of with my key children doing some one-on-one. Again, I'm responsible for their milestones and their learning and their development. I was responsible for monitoring that and encouraging that, and I was doing some one-on-one activities with one of my key children, and I needed their full attention and they needed mine so that we could bond and learn. And it's just so important. If you've been in that kind of environment, you'll get it. If you haven't, I'm not expecting you to understand it, but I'm explaining it to you so you know. It's very important. I need to be able to hear them. I need to be able to understand what they're saying. It's very like, not intense. It's not intense at all, but it's just so important for their development and stuff that I can understand what they're saying, they can understand what I'm saying, and it just all runs very smoothly. But my immediate manager was fixing one of the boards up on the wall, I think, maybe, and she was putting up some of the children's work and whatnot. You know, as you do, decorating the classroom, making it presentable for everyone to learn in. And I was doing a one-on-one with one of my key children, and it was something that could have waited, but she literally demanded my full attention, like there and then. I wasn't even allowed to like finish my conversation with the child. And I literally said to the child, I was like, hang on 2 seconds, so-and-so wants me for something. And I turned and faced her, and she just looked at me and goes, you need to listen. And then carried on by saying, when the children have finished their work, you can put it up on the wall. So in my opinion, was that something that really needed my attention there and then, and also warranted me being embarrassed in front of the children and the nursery practitioners? I don't think it warranted that. I think watching the children and monitoring their development was my priority at that moment in time. But that's the tone of voice and the words that we used. But I let it slide because at the time I was like, she's my superior, I need to do what she says, blah blah blah. But now that I've come home, it's been a year. Now that I've had to think about it and whatnot, literally as soon as I came home, I was like, why did I tolerate that? I was not about to cause a scene in the middle of the classroom, but so yeah, that was what happened. That was strike one. Now we are on strike two. So hold on to your underwear, ladies. To be fair, there was lots of strikes. Like there was lots of things that were said and done that I didn't agree with, that weren't necessarily strikes, but it was little things sort of hitting my brain being like, this isn't the place that it used to be. It's kind of gone downhill a little bit. I don't like the way that we're approaching things. It was sort of me versus them because they were all like besties and stuff. So yeah, I just sort of kept my mouth shut and just sort of did what I was told. Looking back on it, I shouldn't have, and I should have said something even if my opinion was different to everyone else's, because yeah. Anyway, fast forward to another incident. I remember signing policies in the office, and I'm not gonna disclose too much because again, confidentiality, and also can't remember it, don't really want to, I don't work there anymore. So, but there was one thing that I signed and everyone else had to sign that basically said there will be no special treatment. If a child is naughty, we will not single them out, we won't put unnecessary like embarrassment and stuff on them. and that kind of thing. And I remember signing that and I thought, that is a good policy. If a child is being a bit disruptive, sort of, there's enough practitioners for one of us to take them to the side and be like, why is this happening today? Do you want to talk to me about it? Shall we go and do an activity, just you and me? There was enough practitioners for us to do that. But instead, I think it was the immediate superior of mine. Superior? No, not superior. Supervisor. We don't do superior and inferior. Supervisor. She was leading the classroom and there was a child who was being a bit disruptive, and she sort of said, if you carry on disrupting the class, I will get the manager out here and she will tell you off. Trying to get the kids to be scared of the manager, which I don't know, at the time I was like, I didn't really have an opinion on, but now I'm a bit like, why would you inject that fear of a person into the children? I don't know, it is to get them to be on their best behaviour, yeah, I get that, but every time that person, that manager walks by, the children are going to be pooing themselves because they're like, I've got to be up on my best behaviour. I don't know, as someone who has anxiety, I don't know, as I'm sure most kids do, when they, not diagnosed anxiety, but just they're a bit nursery, new place, new school, mum and dad aren't there, blah, blah, blah. They're already going to be on their best behaviour, they're already going to be worried, they're already going to be, do you know what I mean? We don't need to inject extra fear on them. I don't know, that's just my opinion. But yeah, basically this kid didn't stop. He wasn't even being that naughty. Like he was just a bit fidgety and a bit, I don't know, it wasn't even that bad, but it was, if you don't behave, we're going to get the manager out here and she's going to tell you off. Basically the manager came out, dragged the kid from the floor, sat him on a chair at the front of the class so all the kids could stare at him. And in my head I was like, I just signed a policy saying that we don't do stuff like this, and the manager of the nursery is doing this. The manager. I just signed a policy for this and the manager's doing this. Like, what is going on? Was there any point in me signing that? Because we can just drag kids by their arms and just make them sit on chairs and embarrass them in front of their friends. But yeah, that was the way that the nursery was being run. I'm just trying to think of all the other little incidences. There have been like so many, but obviously it was a year ago and my brain has blocked most of them out, but there are certain ones that have stuck in my head that I will be spilling tea on. Now we're ready for the straw that broke the camel's back. Are we ready? There was a girl in nursery and her mum was one of the practitioners, and this is the woman that I got on well with. She was so lovely. I'm trying to change her name in my head, but I can't think of anything to change it to. The mum who worked there was really, really lovely, got on well with her, gelled well with her, just a lovely person. And her little one was actually in our class. And we used to call her like the shortened version of her name. So she had a 2-syllable name and we shortened it to like a 1-syllable and added an S on the end. And her mum used to call her like by a vegetable as well. That sort of sounded like her name, which is fine because it was like mum and daughter, do you know what I mean? Like my mum used to come into my nursery and help out and she used to call me all nicknames and stuff, which was fine because she used to call me that at home. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't really bat an eyelid. No one else really cared either. Like, it was just, do you know what I mean? It wasn't even worth, it was one of those things where it was just, no. Like, no one even, like, it didn't catch anyone's attention because it was just, it just happened, do you know what I mean? But then, obviously, I don't know how to explain it, but kids' names, you do shorten them. Like, there are short, like Millie, Mills. Like, if someone called me Mills at a nursery, wouldn't have cared. People call me Mills now. I don't care. It's just a shortened version of my name. So I did that to a child, and my immediate, I keep calling her immediate superior, she's not supervisor, turned around and went, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she basically called me out and was like, no, don't do that because he's going to think that he has an S in his name because you've done Millie, Mills, that you've put an extra letter in and he's going to think that that's how he spells his name. And I'm like, oh, okay. In my head I was like, they probably call him that at home as well because it's really common, but okay, if I'm not supposed to be doing that, then I'm not supposed to be doing that. Thank you for calling me out. I will remember this. And then, oh my god, there was another incident that I forgot about. I'll tell that one after. There's so many little incidences. Just an incident. Yeah, I need to hurry up because my camera's running out of battery. So yeah, called me out, and then when his dad came and picked him up that day, I said it again, but it was, I think I was chatting with one of the parents, but it was one of the parents that I already knew. It was my friend's mum had a little one who was in our class. So already knew them. My supervisor, oh my god, my supervisor already knew her and was like friendly with her outside of work as well. And this person's dad, who I shortened the name of, came to pick him up, and I said, "Bye, Mills." And my supervisor looked at me and goes, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she said something like, "I've told you about that," or "You've done it again," or something like that. Just calling me out in front of parents, basically, about something so trivial and unimportant, and it made me feel crap. I think there was one other parent there as well, and their children were friends, so they come and pick them up together. And I just sort of jokingly went, "I'm just not going to talk anymore." But I was just like, I'm just going to be quiet. And I sort of said it as a joke. And then the supervisor, oh my God, what is wrong with me? Supervisor looks around and goes, "I'm going to tell the manager you said that." And I had to just stand there like the fear of God was instilled in me then. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. Like, what? I was literally shaking, and I was like, what is going on? It was just not a good day. Just not a good day. So yeah, in front of the parents, I sort of made a little joke, quietly, might I add. Literally no one else heard it. I was like, I'm just going to be quiet. And she was like, "I'm telling Nicole you said that," the manager. And I was like, and then the atmosphere was really freaking awkward until we went back in the classroom. I think that was like the last of the children to go. Went back in the classroom. So I just had to stand there while she gave me an absolute bollocking. And being like, telling me all the things that I shouldn't have done and whatnot. And in my head I was like, they're not even, like, there are so many other worse things that I could have done than shorten a kid's name and put an S on the end. This is where this is all stemming from. I don't know, it just felt really weird. And then it was because there were 3 practitioners in our room, including the supervisor of that day. Me, supervisor, and someone else. I basically just had to stand there while the supervisor gave me a bollocking, and the other practitioner who was on the same level as me, literally just stood there and watched. And then she decided to chime in and sort of say things against me. And while the supervisor was talking to me, I literally sort of stood there because it felt like I was back in school getting told off. I felt cornered and patronised and just like a child being told off. I didn't feel like I was being taught. I felt like I was getting a bollocking. It wasn't, "You could have done this instead." It wasn't constructive criticism. It was basically, "You shouldn't have done this," blah, blah, blah. And I just had to stand there and just take it because I was like, although it's home time and I can walk out, I felt like I couldn't. I had to stand there while my sentence was happening. So, and I just sort of stood there while I was getting the bollocking, and I would only sort of speak little bits sort of when I was asked questions. And then the other person who was a practitioner and just a practitioner would sort of chime in and sort of try and help give constructive criticism, and it would kind of be more constructive than what the supervisor was telling me. So I would sort of answer to her, and then the supervisor would go, "Oh, so you'll speak to so-and-so, but you won't speak to me?" And I'm like, because you're just standing there telling me all the things that I'm bad at and I shouldn't have done, and you're raising your voice and getting all bent out of shape. And I just had to stand there and just take it. Like, I had my coat and my backpack on. I was ready to go home after the hell that I endured. And I just sort of had to just stand there and just accept the fact that I was just getting a bollocking. So when I was spoken to by the other practitioner, I would sort of be like, "Oh, I should have done this instead," or blah, 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 sort of engaging in conversation with her because she was being nice about it and she was telling me how I could improve. So I was engaging in conversation with her, not consciously, but it was like, you're not going to engage in a proper conversation with someone who is literally making you feel like crap. And then the supervisor was sort of getting herself worked up. Probably the fact that I was talking to the other one and not her, and just, I don't know, she was like, "I'm just the worst supervisor ever," like blah, blah, blah. And then the other person was like, "No, you're not, you're doing really well." And I stood there like, is she expecting me to tell her that she's being a great supervisor or something? Because she wasn't. But obviously, if you've bitten off more that you can handle, take a step down so you don't have to be supervisor anymore. But obviously the only reason that she was supervisor was because she's besties with the manager, and she'd like to assure me that that wasn't the case and that she's trained for a job that she can easily do. But the amount of times that I was told, "Oh, I have to do this while you're relaxing over the holidays, I'm having to do this, I'm having to prep all the work," and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, I can't offer you help because I've just started here. Like, I don't know the ropes. I'm learning. I'm still learning my job role. I can't take on more and help you ease the load. Otherwise I would. Like, if I'd have been there for ages, I would have offered help. And if I actually got on with her, I would have offered her help, but I didn't, and I couldn't, so I wasn't going to. I love this cream bronzer. I've just realised I've not spoken anything about the makeup, but I do love this cream bronzer. I'm going to link all the products below, but this cream bronzer is just a dream. So yeah, the supervisor literally got herself like so worked up. I think she started crying, not full on like sobbing, but like she was like, her eyes were filling up and she was getting like really like worked up. And I was just sort of standing there like, I'm the one that's just been given like the worst day. Like, not everyone, but I felt like everyone was on my case and you're the one there crying? Like, what is going on? This is so backwards. But obviously the other practitioner was sort of comforting her and stuff. I think they walked home together, so they were sort of waiting for each other, and they couldn't go like one without the other. But yeah, they were sort of comforting her, being, oh, you're not a rubbish practitioner and you're not a rubbish supervisor and blah, blah, blah. And I was just sort of stood there like, I'm the one that's just been given a bollocking and I'm the one not crying. Like, what is going on? I feel like it was just a bad day for everyone involved. But if anyone should have been crying, it should have been me. But we move. And eventually it was sort of all smoothed out. But in my head, I sort of was like, this all happened on a Thursday. Well, the straw that broke the camel's back, what happened on Thursday, and in my head I already knew as I walked out that nursery, I'm not coming in tomorrow. Like, I need a day off to regroup my feelings. And it would have been Saturday and Sunday I had off as well, but everyone has Saturday and Sunday off. But I needed to clear my head, gather my feelings, and just try and reset. So that was my plan. And I got to my car, I walked from the nursery to the car, and I was just sobbing all the way home because like the adrenaline and all the feelings and everything just literally got to me, and it sort of caught up with me, and I was a bit like, and I sobbed. I got home, I'll see if I can put a picture on the screen. My face was like so swollen, like my eyes, just because I was crying for 20 minutes on the way home. Got home and my mum thought I was laughing like hysterically because I was just so incoherent. My mum was like, what's going on? And I was just sobbing. She thought I was cry laughing. It was not a cry laughing kind of day, mum, but it's fine. And because my mum and dad already knew her, they were like trying to get involved and fix things. Kind of didn't work. So I rang up on Friday morning and I said, I can't remember who I spoke to, but I was basically like, I'm not coming in today. We've got enough practitioners, so I'm not too worried about that. I need to prioritise my needs and my mental health, and just stay home today and take it easy. I then had the manager ring me back the same morning / early afternoon, basically saying the supervisor had told her everything. We were gonna not keep it among ourselves and not tell the manager, but we sorted it ourselves. Do you know what I mean? Like, we didn't need to involve the manager. And my supervisor literally said, don't worry, I won't tell the manager. And I was like, okay. In my head, I was like, this, okay. Didn't even cross my mind to tell the manager or whatever. I was just, my head was all over the place. And it was, yeah, don't worry, I'm not going to tell the manager. And in my head, I was like, you're like best friends. Like, you're very buddy. You gossip a lot. I very much doubt that you're not going to tell her. But I was like, okay, from a professional point of view, if you said you're not going to tell her, then fair enough. We have dealt with it on our own. We don't need to get everyone else involved. Fair enough. Manager rang me next day on the Friday and basically was like, supervisors told me everything, blah, blah, blah. I was called an unreliable employee. I didn't feel welcome at all. Like, it was just, I should have had the manager sort of saying, I understand that things have gone wrong. Would you like to talk to me about it? Would you like to put your side of the story in? No, she did not. She had a conversation with the supervisor. She already took the supervisor's side, didn't want to hear my side of the story, already knew whose side of the story she was on. Basically was like, you're an unreliable employee, this, that, basically picking apart literally everything. And I just had to sit there and listen to it. And she was like, I don't really know how we're going to move forward from this. And in my head I was like, how are we going to move forward from this? And she just kept on going on, I don't know how we're going to move forward from this, blah, blah, blah. And in my head I was like, the only way we can move forward from this is for me to not be here anymore. Not that way, but for me to leave this job. That was, I felt like it was my only way out, because it was very cliquey. There were clear favourites. There were people who would get prioritised, people who would get listened to, and people who wouldn't. People who were expected to get on with what they were doing and not cause a fuss, not cause a stir. There were people, just things, personal and professional relationships were very blurred. And basically it was just not the place that it used to be. So I ended up leaving. And I'm going to put this on the screen because I saved this specifically for when I did this video, and I just thought this was really petty. I'm going to put it on the screen here and you can take a look at that. You can say in the comments below that I'm overreacting or whatever, but I want to put this in the video and just be like, was it necessary? Was it necessary? Like, let me know in the comments if I'm overreacting or something, but was that necessary? Or could they not have just titled it January paycheck or February paycheck? I can't remember which month it was. I think it was February. Could they not have just titled it that? Did it need to be first and final? Meaning it was like a slight dig at me because I'd only been there like a month or just over a month, because my January paycheck was merged in with my February because I'd missed the cut-off point. And I sort of knew already after a month, I was like, this is not the place. Like, I wasn't going to stay there in a place where I felt like crap just so that my CV would look better. Do you know what I mean? Like, my mental health is way more important than my CV. So why did I look like I had a little pea head then? Anyway, another story that was just, and this is one of the story that I should have told before the straw that broke the camel's back, but I got a bit too excited, but it's fine. Anyway, we were outside playing in the garden, the children, blah, blah, blah. I think I brought a child in to go to the toilet, maybe, because we weren't allowed to sort of say, yeah, go by yourself. You had to sort of watch them, which is fine, because there are hazards inside the classroom that, do you know what I mean? If they were left unsupervised, bad things. And I knew that. And so I took a toilet. I took a toilet? No, I didn't. I took a child to the toilet. And while I was gone, another child outside collided with another child, and they hit heads. I didn't know about this, and basically I was on changeover in the afternoon, so basically when the kids come out of our care and they get picked up by their parents, and the parent was sort of asking me questions about his injury, because as soon as there's a head injury we would have to ring home. I didn't know about the injury, I didn't call home, but whoever did knew all the information and told the dad about it. But the dad still had more questions, so the dad was talking to me about it, and my supervisor overheard me say, oh, I wasn't there, I'm sorry, so I don't know what happened. I don't think she overheard the bit where I said, I will go and get my supervisor. But I basically, as soon as I got back in the classroom, got another bollocking off of my supervisor, basically saying that made us sound really unprofessional. I was like, what did I do now? I didn't say that, but in my head I was like, now what have I done? In person I sort of went, what happened? And they were like, you made it look like that the child was unsupervised. And in my head I was like, he was unsupervised by me because I was not in the room when it happened. And she was like, it made it look like we don't communicate to our other staff. And I was like, in my head I was like, well, you don't. Like, a kid has injured himself, I'm on changeover and you've not told me about an injury. And the person was like, I don't know who told, one of the workers that worked there was like, well, his dad's already been told what happened. And I was like, but he had more questions that I didn't have the answer to. I shouldn't have been put on changeover by myself, especially when there was an injury. And if there was an injury, especially a head injury, I should have been told about it. But because I didn't know the answers and I told the parents that, and I was transparent with the parent, you know, the person who puts their kid in our care, I was told that I was unprofessional because I didn't know about an injury, because I don't have eyes in the back of my head. So I guess that one was my fault. I should have been born with eyes in the back of my head. So that one's on me. I don't know. Maybe I should have been born like God, because God's everywhere. So that one was on me. because I wasn't watching everything all at once, even though there was other practitioners around. So that one was my fault. So yeah, bit of a bummer that went tits up, and it sort of put me off of working with children for a little bit, which is really sad because it was something that I was really good at. It's something, my childcare teacher at college was so lovely, and I feel like if I'd had a different teacher, which I did for the last year, it just would have been rubbish. I was literally my childcare teacher's favourite. Like, she literally hugged my mum at parents' evening and was like, Millie's just the best. If I could have a whole class of Millies, my life would be complete. Those were like her actual words as well, at parents' evening. She was just so lovely. I miss her. If I sit and think about her, I miss her. She came back, she left, and she came back as a cover teacher. She covered our registration one morning, and I was just like, I just walked into the classroom and she was in there, and I was like, I really enjoyed my childcare class. And it's really sad that one crappy experience can put you off of your dream job. I don't want to let it consume me and put me off of working with children like altogether, but it does suck because when I go and apply for new jobs like in nurseries, I get managers come up to me and be like, it says you're in a nursery here but you're only in it for like a month, what's that about? And then I have to tell that story, and then it's like, okay, you only stuck it out for a month, and it's like I then have to explain that it wasn't me, it was the workplace, and then I get the lecture of children need stability, which I understand and I agree with, but there are always exceptions to the rule. So yeah, it is a little bit sad, but you know, it is what it is. Maybe one day we'll go back into the childcare field. I just popped some lipstick on. I am doing my highlight, and then I'm going to put some mascara on. My camera battery is flashing, so we need to get our fingers out. I don't know how I feel about this mascara. It's the Sky High one. I don't know, everyone says really good things about it, but I don't know. This is the waterproof one as well. I think the vibe for this makeup was just going to be natural, and I do really like it. Got my favourite lip colour on as well. Oh, I really like this makeup. It's just like little like cute wintry. Oh, it looks so sweet. So that brings us to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it and if you enjoyed me spilling tea, give it a thumbs up. I've got plenty more of these stories. I've got loads of stories coming out of the wazoo. So yeah, subscribe to the channel. I upload every single Monday. Click the bell so you know when I upload Mondays, and you also get bonus content sometimes in a week. So you want to click the bell for that one. Yeah, and I'll see you in my next video.